That's why everybody wants a piece of the action. Everybody needs a main attraction.
All right, hey friends, all you guys, Nick Sci-Fi Corner fans back in Boston and on YouTube. I'm hanging here with my two good buddies, David Bryant and Daniel Thron. These guys are awesome. They're from LA. They work in the film industry. We're hanging out here right next to the convention center here at San Diego Comic-Con. We're over by Homer's Dome because I guess there's some big Simpsons marathon happening, which is totally awesome. Every Simpsons episode, I guess, ever made. 11 days, gonna be crazy. So anyway, I got my buddies here, and I'm really psyched because I've been wanting to get these guys on the show for a long time, but I had to come out to the West Coast in order to do it. But I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about what they do, and then we're just going to talk about some movies and stuff. It's going to be really good. So David Bryant here, he is a visual effects supervisor with Drawn by the Light, and they worked on a number of great projects. I'll let Dave talk about that. And then Daniel Thron here, he's a filmmaker. He's got a couple of good films out there. He's also a writer, and sometimes he's an actor like me. Yeah. So anyway, let's get started here. So Dave, what's up? What are you guys working on?
Currently, we are working on a number of TV projects. Can't get into quite the details just yet because the fall season is still kind of settling out. But in the past, we've worked on TV shows like Believe, Person of Interest recently. Before that, a lot of like CSI, made-for-TV movies. And prior to working for Drawn by the Light, I was working around town working on feature films such as Terminator 3, Aviator, 2012, the movie where Dan also worked on that.
Yeah, you guys worked on that together.
Yeah, and but at Drawn by the Light right now, we're actually working on developing our own properties as well.
Oh, awesome!
So being able to do visual effects gives you a little bit of a leg up in presenting original material, where you actually have the ability to kind of make it look extra spiffy.
Now, for those of you who don't know, David and I, we go way back, all the way back to
University of Massachusetts Amherst.
UMass Amherst, that's right. Yeah, same class, same degree, awesome. And also, David's the guy who turned me on to the Amiga computer. Remember that?
Oh yeah, one of the very first creatively art-centric personal computers. And
Dave became a Lightwave master. That was the big program that they used for shows like Babylon 5.
That's right. One of the very first CG visual effects heavy shows on the air ever.
Yeah, and Lightwave, was on the forefront of all the great graphics that they have now. But now you're using like
Lightwave is still being used. We've won an Emmy using that on CSI.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
And I've used it on feature films as well. For the CSI Emmy shot, we had to do a scene that was like a frozen moment, where the CSI regulars, they're besieged by a bunch of bad guys, and it's a season opener. We kind of show the moment of the theft of these bodies in the middle of this siege. So it's basically like snapshot frozen moment. We move through all the labs, all the offices, and we see fights in progress. People getting thrown through windows, bullets suspended in air, as the camera is navigating through all of this to kind of set up. It was a 2.5, 3 minute long shot. Went on and on. We had to work on it for almost a couple of months prior to, but it used almost every aspect of visual effects, from green screen to multiple dolly shots and motion control, adding CGI elements to further embellish. I mean, it was a ton of work and a lot of artists.
Were there like CG representations of the actors? How did you get the actors to?
Actually, we used. And the thing is, we didn't even shoot high-speed photography to slow it down. We shot regular speed, 24 frames per second, and the actors would hold a pose, and they were being braced by like a pole or something they could rest on that was painted green, and we could remove that. And no matter how steady an actor tries to keep himself, to make himself look frozen, there's always going to be a little bit of balance. Just the human body's going to be like that. So we had to basically stabilize them in post, which means through 3D reprojection and compositing, we kind of had to make a collage. It's very difficult to explain. of several frames to kind of freeze them in place while the camera was still moving. And it was basically
3D models of the actors and reprojected
like reprojecting it onto cards or onto geometry, much the way they do any stereoscopic conversion for 3D films today.
Wow, so. That's amazing. Now, Dan, you're a filmmaker, and why don't you tell the folks what you've done recently, especially the big thing that you did not too long ago.
Oh, the exciting thing we worked on is we got to do one of the 3 prequel short films for Planet of the Apes to cover the history between the last movie and the new movie, and we did this through Vice Media and Fox, and they came to us 3 filmmakers to try to write wherever we want to sort of move that story along, and it was a really exciting opportunity because we just make up whatever we want and make the kind of film that we want to make, as long as it sort of played within their sandbox. It was fine. And we had very little time to do it, but we jammed through it in like about 3.5 weeks.
I heard you had to do a lot of editing though, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. Like because they have to make it work with, the product. The big product they're trying to sell is their great big movie, which is awesome. And so we have to make something that aligns with the flavor of that movie. And our initial screenplay I wrote it like in one night. And it's like 10 pages long, which usually like a page equals a minute of screen time. And so we ended up with this 10-minute movie, or 8 or 10-minute movie. And they loved it, but like they can't put up an 8 or 10-minute movie. And so we had to find ways to squeeze that down to 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes. And I think along the way, like going back and forth with them, we understood more what they wanted from the experience, and we were like a groovy mood going on. That now, when I saw Planet of the Apes, finally the big movie, I was like, that's the movie we were aiming for. So it fits right in. It was really interesting. It was a great project.
Now, speaking of San Diego Comic-Con, you had a movie that was shown here a couple years ago. Yeah,
that's right. No, I had my short film called Spoiler, which is a strange take on zombies. It's about 20 minutes long, and it stars this dude right here, because we've been working together for a long time. And it played at Comic-Con, was 2 years ago?
2012.
2012. Yeah, and that's done good business. We're trying to get a show developed off of that. Yeah, it's really
Awesome. So now you guys in LA, you're doing all this stuff, meeting people, everything like that. Have you seen any changes in the film industry since you've been there? Because I know.
I bet Dave can handle this better than I can, but like the big thing certainly is VFX has changed.
What most people don't understand right now is that visual effects and post-production work in general on Hollywood films was traditionally done in the States, more specifically in California, where the studios were. But now, in order to get a piece of the pie, other countries have been offering tax incentives to basically attract the work to places like Canada or the UK or New Zealand, Australia. And that's made it very, very difficult for American visual effects companies to compete with those sorts of savings that the studios can get. So we've witnessed in California a huge migration, just a loss of jobs that are going to overseas, going to India, going to China. And so visual effects artists now have to be willing to chase their job all over the planet, wherever it may be, which makes it very difficult to own a house, support a family, constantly uprooting them. So it's been very difficult, and we're trying to even the playing field back out again, because the studios really shouldn't necessarily be chasing the biggest savings. I understand it's a business and they need to kind of try to get save money wherever they can, but I think quality can suffer in that way when everybody's racing to make that bottom line.
Well, it's nothing to do with saving money. I mean, they're just making extra money.
Well, yeah, the tax incentives actually do go kind of directly into the the producer's pockets.
They're already making a ton of money. They make more money.
They're making more money than they ever did. What was I saying?
So you
threw me off, man.
It gets so feisty about that subject. I'm like, man.
Yeah. So, but if we actually emphasize quality, then I think the project should be awarded to whoever can handle it best and do the best job with it. Because I think we've started to even see in some cases projects suffering because studio went somewhere where it was dirt cheap, and sometimes you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Now there's VFX Solidarity International, right? That's,
yes. That is a movement started by visual effects artists to try to address the issue, which could mean either creating tax incentives for California to be more competitive with places like, say, New Orleans, who offer some great tax breaks. But these are all stopgap measures, and it's still going to be a continued race to the bottom, where everybody's underbidding each other all the time. And you know, visual effects is the one area where there's no profit sharing. We don't have a union the way actors do, the way directors do, the way the writers do, and producers do. Visual effects is completely on their own, and the way that stuff gets bid is a complete flat bid, which means if the studio makes any changes or if they go on hiatus, you don't get any more money, and they don't give you anything to help float you through those times. Wow. So everybody's trying to land the job by bidding underneath their competitors.
Right.
And it's usually never enough money to even simply make ends meet, and that's why you've seen companies going out of business.
Yeah, like Rhythm and Hues, right?
Big ones, Digital Domain.
That won an Academy Award.
Yes.
You know, for the work they did, and then they declared bankruptcy.
And I think like the key problem is that that studios treat effects companies like they're like there's this concept of above the line and below the line, and like above the line is the writer, producer, director. You know, like all the creatives who, if you swap them out, the flavor of the movie changes, right? And below the line, like it's not like one's better or worse, but below the line is stuff like grips and you know, like folks that it's extremely hard work, but the only thing you need to do is do it well. Yeah. Like there's no creative input about this. It's just it's a very, very hard job, but that's it. And so the competition on below the line stuff is just doing the job extremely well, whereas the competition on above the line stuff is creativity. And so with the way that studios look at VFX houses is they treat them as if they're below the line people when they do above the line work constantly.
When it's basically the main draw of movies like Transformers, whatever, people are going to see the effects.
Is because of the effects. Like if anything, VFX should be part of the P&A, the print and advertising budget of the film, because that's they generate the materials that get the film sold. Like that's how that stuff works. Yeah. But like the attitude towards it is like, well, these people are or these companies are interchangeable, so we can just swap them out. It doesn't mean it actually makes an enormous qualitative difference in your product, because like if you and not just in terms of, like you can have like great work is done in India, great work is done in Vancouver, but if you're doing work all over the place, trying to match up the creative styles of all these things gets really mushy and weird. And you see this in movies that are coming out now, where it's like everything looks a little disjointed and a little bit like nothing's flowing really well. And that's because there's no creative unity between the director and the VFX companies anymore. It used to be a very, very direct pipeline, and now VFX people, like, they're responsible for coming up with the look of shots to match the director's vision. Like seeing Life of Pi all the time. Like Life of Pi, like when they shot, it's beautifully shot, but most of that stuff is created afterwards. Now it's still from my opinion, like the director of photography on that is totally responsible for the look of the CG in those shots as well, because he's the guy who's responsible for what the frame looks like. But the ideas that are in those frames are created largely by the VFX people that do them.
They're not technicians; they're artists who are making.
And so, like, if you want
treat it like technicians
like if you want to have a unified flavor and a real creative event for your film that makes sense, then you have to treat the creatives like creatives. You have to treat like the below the line people like below the line people, which is just like the reason why you get, like, with grips, like the job of being a grip is to work hard and work fast and do it right? And the job of being a VFX guy is, please create this frame for me, help me light this, make creative decisions that you can show me that I as the director can then choose between. And I think that now that we've sort of outsourced everything everywhere, even in stuff like Captain America, there's some beautiful work all over the place, but there's no unified look, and it starts to affect how you feel about the film after a while. It's really sloppy.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the fact that visual effects are a huge draw nowadays for certain films, and all the big tentpoles, that I think we do need to reevaluate how visual effects is thought of.
Yeah.
And the whole reason that the actors unionized way back when and got involved in profit sharing and that sort of stuff and protections for them is because you go to see a Tom Cruise movie because of Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Therefore, he should share in the reason, in the proceeds, because
It's part of the reason you're making the money.
he's part of the reason that you're going to see the film, and part of the reason why the studio's making the money. So that's the exact same logic for something like Transformers or Man of Steel or whatever. If you're going to see the visual effects, then I think people would benefit. I think the system could benefit from an overhaul, basically.
Yeah. Wow.
Treat everybody the same way. Give everybody the same.
Like the reason why they thought they could get away with this is because it's very learning to do visual effects is much more accessible now, and so countries that formerly would have not had the infrastructure to do it can now, like India and Mumbai, got up to speed very quickly. A bunch of great artists there, and they put together great work. But also what that means, and where the industry is going, is you actually need less and less people to do these things. So the pool of the pool of jobs gets smaller, and ultimately the demand for people to be really, really good artists gets higher. And you're going to start to see smaller films, less expensive films, having effects that are just as good as any big effects and done by much smaller studios.
Well, that's a good point, because where I come from, I'm a member of a couple of film organizations, local film organizations, and they're all independent filmmakers and everything like that. And so now I see that independent films are starting to really come up in terms of production value, visual effects, overall film quality, sound, music, design, everything. I mean, it's just amazing that things are happening so much, so fast. And it's because of what you're saying, Dan, is that it's just, this is becoming more accessible. So what do you guys think about, how Hollywood is changing? Are we moving away from Hollywood? It's becoming more of a global thing in terms of films, or is it always going to be Hollywood, the $100 million film, and then everything else is India?
No, I think that certainly all the major countries, like China and India and all that, they're getting in the blockbuster game as well. I think that Americans are so used to seeing American blockbusters that's hard for them to get in the mindset of wanting to see a Chinese blockbuster. They don't know any Chinese stars. They don't know any of that stuff. But that's going to slowly start to change. You're going to have, because right now, even you bring up Tom Cruise's latest movie, underperformed in the States, but a huge business everywhere else, and that's true for a number of the big movies this year. And the global market is just 10 times more important than it ever was, and it's because those countries, as movie-watching audiences, are it's getting more and more and more successful and more popular, and they're starting to really control this themselves. So it's going to become more dispersed around the world, which I think is very good. And it doesn't necessarily mean the United States gets weakened in that whatsoever. Yeah. But the convergence of all of this, the problem that I think is coming along is that you're just like I said, you have with doing VFX. By going to a zillion different small companies in a bunch of different countries, produces this sort of hodgepodge, homogenized, weird look. Like all the big blockbusters, for me, just haven't had any real style. They look really homogenized and bland. Yeah. The effects are excellently done, but there's a uniformity to everything. I mean, in a uniformity of lack of creativity. That means that everything looks sort of the same. You're going to have the same thing happening with trying to sell to foreign markets, where you're getting blockbusters that are made here that are designed to play in China and India and South America and everything like this, which means they have to match a certain set of criteria that sell in those countries, and it becomes more homogenous, and so everything just becomes sort of bland and very predictable. So
then the creativity is kind of, getting supplanted by more of just marketing concepts to try to make.
They're trying to market to every single person in the world, and when you start doing that, you end up with things that may be very good. The Avengers is a very good movie, but it's also as broad a possible movie as you can imagine. Yeah. You see something like that versus even The first Star Wars, the very first one. Like, compare the styles of those two movies. Star Wars looks like this weird little indie film. It's this very stylistically defined movie.
It was taking a risk.
It was taking a risk.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why it's a bad idea for studios to do what they're doing now is they're going for the dollars,
So there'll be less risk taking.
They think that's less risky. It's actually way more risky because people will get bored. People in China will get bored. America will get bored with everything just being kind of, the same mediocre level.
Right.
And I think that what is good is that because effects are easier and easier to do essentially at home, like we did for Spoiler, we did for Apes and stuff like this.
Spoiler was an indie film.
Yeah, I mean, like you can do really great work in a small group now. It brings like unique creativity back into play, and that's the stuff that like breaks the studio system out of that kind of blandness.
So do you think the studio system is starting to get worried?
Oh, they're terribly worried now.
Yeah, because
like all the interesting stuff is happening on television. Television's where all like the really daring stuff is happening, and they're freaked out. And this is like TV and film have been on odds like that for a long, long time. But the last time this really happened was like the 1950s, where they were making just incredibly boring films. Like all the big blockbusters, they were just making same old cruddy musicals that sounded the same as all the other cruddy musicals. Here's more Doris Day pictures, and like attendance is going like this, and everyone's staying home and watching TV. And that is what you have going on right now. And so like now the studios are like, oh, we're losing all this money to TV, and so we have to be safer. And like that's the mistake. You have to be more daring. That's how you break out of it. That's how you establish yourself and make a lot of money.
Kiefer Sutherland on Thursday, because I went to the 24 panel, he said years ago, TV was where you went to die in your career.
Right. No, it's
that was it,
Yep.
And now he says, look, it's completely turned around. TV is where, like what you're saying, doing all the daring stuff. And he's like, I got to spend 9 years doing 24, developing this character, taking it from like this type of guy all the way to this totally different character, and I developed him over all these years. And it was a true experience.
Right.
And the show is a true experience. And that show, I mean, if you look at how a show where a guy stays up for 24 hours, fighting terrorists,
Right.
I mean, what a crazy concept. And that would only happen in television.
Right.
Well,
so certainly, I have all sorts of problems with television. I think television is, this isn't the golden age that everyone talks about. I think that it's the production value age, and like the writing and the acting, the production value are great on television, but it has its own set of issues that are becoming more and more obvious that they have to overcome. But as far as film goes, like film is on the verge. I mean, the studios are on the verge of the same kind of change that happened, I think, in the late 50s and 60s, and by the end of the 60s, you had studios investing hugely in essentially indie filmmakers that were doing really weird, daring work because they didn't know what else to do. They're like, we can't make any more lame flops. We can't afford another, sword and sandal epic that ditches the box office. Like, so let's give money to William Friedkin or Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola, Godfather is like, it's not his first film, but it's essentially his first film.
Yeah.
Like he did one crappy horror movie and whatever, but then he does The Godfather. Because they're like, we have to roll the dice if we're going to get out of this rut. And the studios are in a terrible rut right now. And I think that what you're starting to see now is like directors like Gareth Edwards. Like Gareth Edwards does an awesome movie with Monsters, and that's his first film. And then he gets Godzilla and possibly a Star Wars film, because the studios are like, that has character. This dude is a new, fresh voice, and that's what's going to make us money. And you're going to see more and more of that kind of thing.
And I'll be reviewing Godzilla on the Amazing Cinematograph part of the show here on San Diego Comic-Con tomorrow. But it is true. It's like Darren Aronofsky, And it was funny because he goes and he makes Pi, and then he makes a big studio film, which was what was that film we made after Pi?
Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, that's not very studio, but I mean, like he certainly with Noah. I mean, like Dave and I both really love Noah. and Noah is both an indie feeling movie, but a
But
giant,
it is his first
super blockbuster.
big studio.
And Noah. But when he was doing The Fountain,
Yeah, right.
okay, and he was struggling with trying to figure out how to make The Fountain, and he said that here I am now, I'm studio director trying to make a studio film, but the story is not a studio story. You know what I mean? And he's like, all right, I have to go back to my roots, and I have to think like an indie director again. I have to make this like an indie film.
Right.
Which is why it's so good. I mean, it's a great movie.
I love it.
Yeah, definitely. But it's, for a lot of people, it might not be the cup of tea because it's super cerebral and surrealistic.
It's not a standard story, linear, told.
And that's what brings a new excitement to film. Like that's what juices up audiences again. I mean, the thing is, like, this is what I don't want. What I would like for us to all avoid is, like, if a Chinese blockbuster comes out and there's nothing different about it from, say, Captain America 2, except that it's in Chinese. Like, that's valueless. If you're going to have Chinese independent filmmakers and Chinese filmmakers, you should be making Chinese movies that feel Chinese. And then when we see them, we go, oh my God, that's exciting.
Yeah.
You see or Korean films like Old Boy or The Host or something like this. Or when you see Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon from China. That absolutely electrifies and inspires people. And that's what should be happening across the board. Instead,
look at The Raid. The Raid completely influenced the remake of
Dredd.
Dredd.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And the Carl Urban Dredd film was infinitely an improvement over the Stallone one, I think.
Oh yeah,
and you can feel the Raid all over the new Dredd.
It's the same movie, and I was psyched. I was just like, that dude saw The Raid, and was like, I want to make The Raid and make Dredd.
Yeah, it's fresh blood input from another culture. Right.
Yeah, now he's trying to do Dredd 2. He's got the campaign on Facebook.
Oh, it's awesome.
This Dredd sequel, and it's really cool. I mean, he comes here all the time, Carl Urban, and people want it. They want Dredd 2, and they want it like that.
Yeah, it's
They
awesome.
don't want Stallone Judge Dredd. They want Carl Urban Dredd, and Carl Urban gets it.
Well, the thing is, Dredd's hit it big on Netflix. And I think that's where you're going to see really creative new stuff. It's not TV for Netflix, like House of Cards or something like that. I think that's still got its own TV show problems. But I see more and more fresh, actual indie genre movie making for Netflix than anywhere else. Where you get so used to, like I saw this movie, what's it called? The Conspiracy. And it's on Netflix.
We were just talking about this the other day.
And it was awesome. I mean, it's totally like this lo-fi indie, found footage horror movie.
Yeah.
But when a studio handles found footage horror, they just repeat the same thing until it's dead. And it's like Paranormal Activity 10, But this thing, these guys, you can feel it when you're watching it. And it's not the best movie ever made, but it's just you feel when you're watching it, these dudes really wanted to make this movie, and they're super excited about it. And so it's really fun. It's it's scary, and it's really great. And you can feel the electricity of the filmmaking in the movie. And even though it's obviously made for $20, but it's really, really, really effective. And that's where you're going to start to find the really fresh new genre stuff.
Well, my friend Anthony Ambrosino, he's a director, producer. I had him on the show last time on the Aliens with Benefits issue number 2, Big Sci-Fi Corner, and he went and helped co-produce Almost Human, not the Carl Urban Almost Human, everybody, and it's really cool. It's a horror film. It's an alien possession, evil alien possession thing. Total indie style, totally low budget. But he took it to Toronto, and the Toronto International Film Festival, got picked up by IFC Midnight, and now it's got a whole distribution, and especially a digital distribution, which is the thing now that I really think is probably a game changer at this point. Because what a theater's going to do, what a studio's going to do when people are getting this stuff out digitally, and everything's high def, streaming, high bandwidth streaming, all this sort of stuff, and you can create literally in your own, home and make something good. Get a bunch of guys together and ladies and just work on something really amazing, and you got a good team, and and all of a sudden you're creating something just so cool, so fresh, so creative. What it reminds me of is Star Trek, okay? This 1960s, the good Star Trek, and how they didn't have big budgets for special effects, and so they had to rely on story. And
That's
also,
great writing. That's awesome writing.
Yeah,
Which should be the priority anyway. It shouldn't be the fallback.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. And the other things that they did, like with the crazy camera angles, they tried everything they could to make what they were doing as artistic and as intense as possible. Anything that was going on, and I mean, that's why that show has endured. And it's that thinking that I think is, what independent filmmakers are trying to accomplish now. You know what I mean? Because I think people are just getting sick of reboots, reimaginings, endless sequels.
And you don't have to go to film school anymore to be able to do this stuff. You don't have to, spending like hundreds of thousands of dollars for a film school education, only to have them beat into you the same thing. Everybody's, told the exact same stuff, and you're coming out possibly making the same stuff. I mean, if you break out of that and you listen to your own voice and you experiment and you learn this stuff, do it at home. Like, that's how, when we were kids, we were picking up cameras. We were just running around in the woods.
But this is, it's the way that we make movies now. I mean, it's not like, we had more of a budget to do the Planet of the Apes thing. We're still running around like idiots doing this thing. I mean, it's not like it's like, now we have a budget, we have to do this, we're running around with no permits, and like 3 people and holding lights up, and just like
that's the fun of it. That's the joy of it.
It's like that line from Heat when Michael, what's his name? Michael Madsen. Anyway, says, "For me, the action is the juice."
For me, the action is the juice.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And I think that God bless Comic-Con, for instance. It's super fun, fantastic, and I'm all for Marvel's next 25 releases in the Marvel franchise chain. That's all going to be great. That is largely what dominates Comic-Con now. And it's waiting for the news and these big releases that are all essentially the same thing. There's outliers like Guardians of the Galaxy looks like it's got more flavor. But everything else is made to be this sort of interlocking franchise dominance. Yeah. Whereas and there's just not a lot of creativity in that. Like Captain America 2 was excellent. It's really well made. But you could also tell that they were trying to make sure that it linked up with Iron Man and make sure it linked up with it. And everything, it's like a giant television show.
Isn't it the director of Ant-Man, Bale?
Yeah, exactly. Well, no one knows what happened, but I suspect it's because that dude makes very, very unique movies. He made Scott Pilgrim, he made The Shaun of the Dead, this kind of stuff. And they're very much his. And he probably wanted to make a movie that was his. You want to.
And the studio said, these are the parameters you have to work in.
You have to make a movie that feels like every other movie.
That's what they mean when they say they parted because of creative differences.
And this is what I'm talking about with visual effects. It's like when you go to a number of different studios, you have to get them all to agree on a common level so that all the stuff matches kind of. And you end up with this sort of blandness and lack of vision, because everyone's just got to be like, okay, so I'm here. Are you here? Okay, I'm here, like this, and it's just this generalized, soft agreement that doesn't have any spark to it. Whereas you could see a movie like that movie I was talking about, Under the Skin, with Scarlett Johansson. That's a much smaller budget film than anything that's premiering at Comic-Con, and I will never forget it for the rest of my life.
It's way out.
It's stunning. The visuals are incredible. The effects are perfect.
It's not like anything else at all.
Like anything else. Right, and it's an art film, and it's slow, and it's bizarre, and not everyone's going to like it. But it has an idea of what it's trying to say. And I think that indie filmmaking now is actually happening for things like, people make their own movies and then push them through distributor or something like this onto Netflix and Hulu and jazz like that. It's not, don't wait around for the big companies to do something creative. They're locked in this perfect storm of we have to keep on being safer because we're not making any money, and they're going to wipe out. Yeah. They're going to wipe out. And it should be, it's like with, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling. I get so excited about this stuff.
Cool, no.
But with Sundance, the festival, Sundance Film Festival. They started out as a totally indie-minded thing. Robert Redford was like, this is going to be for new visionary voices. This is an indie film thing because we're tired of the studio stuff. Now, 20 whatever it is years later, they are stuck because they have become this. Their releases are very predictable. You go to Sundance and it's just it's all the same kind of Sundance-y movies.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a bunch of good movies in there. you know. But it's all like it's very, very homogenized now. You know, like it's all the same sort of stuff that wins. It's very, very predictable. Meanwhile, other film festivals have cropped up around it, like little button mushrooms growing up around the main thing.
Yeah.
Like Slam Dance and whatever. And Slam Dance is actually pretty old now, but who are dedicated to not being Sundance.
Yeah.
They're ones that actually will take submissions from people that were rejected from Sundance. Like
Exactly.
we will only take people who were
That's a
rejected
selling
from
point.
Sundance.
That's a selling point. And I think that is what needs to happen at Comic-Con. Like Comic-Con has become this unbelievable force, you know, this unstoppable, you know, force of nature, and it controls, you know, like it's
become a tool for the studios.
It's become a tool for the studios. The attitude of how us nerds react here becomes sort of homogenized opinion, and then that moves forward, and like that's how you screw up good stuff.
Yeah.
Like you need other real indie filmmakers in other, like, have micro-cons happen over Comic-Con, where it's just like, Comic-Con. We're going to do something radical, and we're going to just do indie sci-fi, and it's going to happen over here. And if you have a Comic-Con badge, you can't come in.
Yeah,
like, that's the kind of stuff we need to see.
Funny you should mention that, because if you go over there, I mean, in that hall, the studios, they have built these giant pavilions.
Right.
Giant, I mean, the money for the movies that they're promoting. The Marvel thing was unbelievable. I mean, it was just in Weta, you know, for the Hobbit films. Wingnut, I guess, you know, they're the ones. I mean, giant smog set. No, I'm all for looking at these spectacular things, you know, it's really cool, but you're right, there's no indie presence there whatsoever. And that's one of the main things, you know, the controversies with Comic-Con is like, you know, the debates here, you know, between the fans, you know, they want it to be more like the way it used to be, all, you know, indie and, you know, for the artists and all that stuff. But then, you know, the other side is like, well, if it's not, you know, promoted and pushed and sponsored by the big studios, then you don't get the spectacle. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure,
so,
yeah.
you know, what do you want? You know, spectacle?
Yeah, well,
or,
the thing is, I'm not against the studio stuff. I love the studio stuff. You know, I'm totally all for, like, you know, big crazy things like this. That's awesome. But the crazy part comes from them being studios being exposed to new ideas.
Yeah.
Right. That's why, like, that's how, like, The Matrix happened. Like, you know, you have all these cruddy science fiction movies throughout the 90s because everyone's trying to rip off Aliens. For 10 straight years, they're trying to rip off Aliens. And then finally, these dudes come out of left field and they show a studio, what if we did something like this? You know, what if we did something utterly new and totally intense? We've got it. And studios are like, that's how we make money. That's it. And like, so like, it's great to have the studio, it's great to have all this big studio stuff. But in order to make things fresh for the audiences, the studios themselves have to broadcast ideas that are created in non-constrictive formats like indie film.
Right.
They need to say, like, you know, like in the 70s, that's just like, okay, I saw this movie called Who's That Knocking at My Door? And even today, nobody knows what that is. That's Martin Scorsese's first film, and out of that, he gets Mean Streets. And out of that, he gets Taxi Driver. And out of that, he gets Raging Bull, which are big studio releases, big prestige releases. That's the same thing we need to see here.
Yeah.
But the studios won't do that on their own. They won't lead in that direction on their own. They need the indie filmmakers have to kind of do that first to kind of show them how it's done. And
you
then
have to take control. If you want to see the stuff, you have to make it. You have to get it out there and try to get as many people, to follow you as possible. And then you come to
then you can change the system with it.
Right. But like that's why Comic-Con needs that kind of a venue, like, or at least the slam dance of Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Because you need someone to be like, because the best thing that ever happens for me is when, you know, the studio rolls in with like, we have our multi-million-dollar Pirates of the Caribbean presentation. And then some little indie dude does something, and that's what everybody talks about. And meanwhile, you know, like the Pirates of the Caribbean guys are like, but we spent so much money. You know, that's how things stay exciting.
Well, that's kind of what happened in 2012. I mean, everybody, you know, lined up for Hall H right over there forever, night before, to go into the Hobbit panel, right? You know,
yourself included, right?
Yeah. Oh, I spent 5 hours in that line only not to get in. Okay, you know, but the thing was that wasn't the big thing. Okay, it turned out that, you know, sure, Ian McKellen and, you know, Martin Freeman, and all the guys, and Peter Jackson. They were all there, and it was great. But what was the big thing was Godzilla. The teaser for Godzilla.
The teaser for Godzilla.
Gareth Edwards, independent filmmaker, and that blew everybody out.
And that was unexpected. And they hadn't announced it prior, right? It
That's
was
right.
a total surprise.
That's obviously a studio movie, but the reason why we're talking about it is because that is an indie-generated studio movie.
Yeah.
Gareth Edwards was some dude who's like intensely creative. Let's hire him. We're putting him on this property, and like it's really great for studios. And this happened with like Joe Kosinski and Buzz like this, where they're just like. As far as
before Thron, people were like,
Joe Kosinski hadn't done anything big before Thron, but it's a great move for studios because they hire Joe Kosinski, and if the movie fails, they can blame him because he's never done anything before, or if it does really great, then they've made a new star, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And in Joe's case, like he ended up with a movie that made a fair amount of money. The script's not very good, but he did a really professional job with it, and he showed that he could handle a $260 million production. So he goes on to make whatever he wants. Like, it's a win-win for everybody. Like, for a filmmaker, for an indie filmmaker to be in that position, it gives you a gigantic chance, and for the studio, it's no risk at all, because they can just go,
built-in scapegoat.
yeah, that's it. That's it. And they should do it. That's the kind of stuff they should do all the time. That's what they did with Francis Ford Coppola and The Godfather. Like, the reason why The Godfather exists is because they're like, it's a big popular book, but if we get one of the established filmmakers to do it and he blows it, then it's going to be an embarrassment for us. We get this young dude, he blows it, we just go, we try to invest in someone interesting, but I guess it didn't work out.
It didn't work out. And the same guy who wrote the script, Mario Puzo, wrote Superman.
That's right. Yeah. Puzo is he's pretty amazing dude. Right?
Yeah.
Good big stories.
Picture him with the cigar, and he's a good old boy. He's a paisan. And it's like those are. I love those moments.
It's an awesome that kind of stuff is an awesome unification of big budget money, independent ideas, and trust across the board.
Right.
And the way you're going to get there is that anybody who's watching this thing who wants to make movies know that it's super cheap. Definitely do it. Like, definitely do this stuff. Like, your cameras are inexpensive. If you have an idea, go and make the idea. Get it out there. Don't wait around for like Avengers 5 to tell you what's cool. Avengers 5 is going to do fine all by itself. Go and make your own thing.
This is what I'm doing with Nick Sci-Fi Corner. I mean, I'm making my show. You could call this the Renegade Panel. Because we're trying to get a panel called DIY Sci-Fi, do-it-yourself science fiction. But people more want to hear about the future of the Star Wars franchise from a fan's perspective. So we're out here doing the Renegade Panel, and we're talking about doing it yourself. Being creative, being an indie maker, artist, and doing with passion. I mean, Dave, you were doing effects on the Amiga. I mean, back in college.
That's how
doing it yourself, man. I remember, and you got me into the Amiga.
Well, that's what they're using for Babylon 5. So I'm just like, this is something that you can actually do in your bedroom at home. Just start cranking this stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the stuff that you were doing before you became a pro at it, and it was good stuff.
And I didn't go to school for it. I taught myself. So
I mean, we both graduated.
Especially in today's day and age, you can learn anything you possibly want on YouTube. There is a tutorial out there for anything.
Yeah, that's how I edit
Teach yourself.
Corner.
Teach yourself. You're picking up stuff every day. Right?
Oh my God, it's great. I'm picking up stuff from you guys, picking up stuff from my friends who at the Rhode Island Film Collaborative.
Life is boring unless you're constantly learning.
Become an autodidact. So you know what autodidact is in music.
It's awesome. Being creative, it's the way to go. Do it yourself. Don't wait for everybody to tell you to do it. I mean, you
don't
can wait
do it the
forever.
way everybody tells you to do it.
Yeah, that's the other, and that's
keep your own voice.
Exactly. I'm glad you say that, because as a writer, I have come up against a lot of closed doors from publishers and from agents and things like that. And some of the feedback I get is, well, I don't know how I can market this, or this is a different type of voice than what normally is out there, blah blah, all this sort of stuff. And I feel like this is why a lot of writers have turned to self-publishing, is because I have a unique voice. NLV has a unique style. I totally break the fourth wall all the time in the writing, and I don't really care because I think that it's cool and fun, and I'm interacting with my readers. So you know, author's intrusion, but it's cool author's intrusion. And then I have the style, you know, the gritty, irascible, irreverent style as in my writing. And you know, and when it comes to stuff for like Nick Sci-Fi Corner, screenplays I write, I still try to infuse that quality, that independent, do-it-yourself spirit and quality, and not try to write like what all these editors will tell you. No, you have to write like this. No, this is how it sounds properly, or this is, what is that?
Why do you want to be like everybody else?
Yeah, why do you want to be
Where's the fun in that?
Look at E.E. Cummings, for God's sakes. I mean, guy used no capital letters.
Yeah, exactly. Exposure doesn't rhyme. What is this? Yeah, no, like that's the thing. It's like I'm all for. Like, I love big studio stuff as much as anybody. I love big pop novels. I love pop music. I love all. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all good. It's all really good. But it does become stale if you don't have people like taking chances on the fringe and getting stirring the pot up.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the state we're in right now with like essentially it's like we were saying before, like. This is the revenge of the nerds. Like, the nerds won.
Yeah.
We dominate the world. This is where the economic engine of entertainment is. And it's fantastic. And I feel like we're sitting on our laurels a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, like, it's just, like, that when Marvel released its release schedule through, was it 2025?
Yeah, 2025, yeah.
Like, I was like, what?
Like 6 unnamed films or something,
like,
like
I may be proven wrong, but they're gonna get halfway through that thing, and everything that they have made will be so homogenous, high quality but homogenous, that they will not get to make those last few movies because people will be bored of that by then. And you will, in between that time, another Matrix will come out, or another Star Wars.
People will turn their attention to something radically different.
Right. And it's not that superhero. I'm like, I love superhero movies, and it's not like when people are like, too many superhero movies. Like, then don't see a superhero movie. But there are too many safe movies being made, and I would love to see studios make risky things again. It's very rare for them to do that.
Well, there you go. There you go. You got to hear
Risk.
from Risk.
Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.
That is why we are here.
Risk is our business.
Why we're aboard her.
That's right, man.
Yeah,
That's right.
We're all big Star Trek fans. Yeah, we all go way back. We've been talking Star Trek and science fiction and all kinds of stuff forever and ever and ever. These are my buddies here. I love talking sci-fi with these guys. We can talk all day, but I don't think we have enough storage space on the cameras to talk. So I'm gonna let you guys go. But I'm so glad to see you guys.
Yeah,
I love it every time I come out to the West Coast, hanging out with you guys. And I love it when you come out to the East Coast. We hang out, we go to movies. What did we go to recently? What did we see? When you came to visit?
Oh, we went to see Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, Planet of the Apes. Yeah, Planet of the Apes. Where you did the tie-in. So it's all connected. It's really cool.
When are you coming up to LA?
Maybe next year. Definitely. Yeah, I might skip Comic-Con, next year, and come and visit you guys.
Star Wars convention. New indie films only. That's it.
Yeah, new indie films. There you go. Let's do it in Boston.
Perfect. Done. Good beer.
Yeah. All right, guys. You guys are the best.
All right, bud. Thank you very much.
You're the best. Yeah. There you have it. Little, words of wisdom from my awesome friends, David Bryant, Daniel Thron. I love it. Here we are at San Diego Comic-Con talking about being creative, all these ideas, and this is the place where creativity should rule, and it is Revenge of the Nerds. I mean, look at all that we've accomplished so far, and there's going to be so much more. Oh my God, I can't wait. So, and more to come on the special edition of Nick Sci-Fi Corner, NSFC SDCC. Stay tuned.
And that's why everybody wants a piece of the action. Everybody needs a main attraction. Everybody needs satisfaction guaranteed. But everybody wants a piece of the action.
Hey everybody, Nick Iandolo, Nick Sci-Fi Corner. I have made it to San Diego. Preview showing of The Flash and Constantine. first official day of San Diego Comic Con. It's gonna be 98 degrees today. Look at this guy! We went to a 24 panel with Kiefer Sutherland. There's gonna be a big photo shoot of everybody dressed up as Marvel superheroes. Yeah! Look at that! So cool. All these great superheroes and supervillains. It was incredible. We're at world famous Lolitas on Park Avenue. Dudes to the right of me. My buddies, Dave and Dan. It's there, guys. In the Masquerade contest here at San Diego Comic Con, and also there's a dance party afterwards. The San Diego Comic Con Masquerade Dance Party is over until next year. Here we are in Hall H. We made it into Hall H for the Supernatural panel. And we're just wrapping it up, getting ready to come home to Boston.